Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. Okay, it's been a while. I haven't really been in the shop much lately. I've got a, a project outside of the shop. In fact, it's a piece of property that I'm getting ready to hopefully try to liquidate. But that means I'm doing a lot of prep work in order. Anyway, it's a long story, but it's been taking up pretty much all my time. So there's been no shop work per se done at all. But I do spend some time in the shop just sitting here relaxing because it gets tiring trying to do things around the house here and then do things at the other place. And anyway, so much about rambling. But I thought maybe I'd bring you up to date on a couple of things, at least get some things off my chest. So we're just doing if you haven't guessed it, we're doing a rambling rampage. Well, first thing I want to do is I wanted to enlighten you about this little fella right here. Now, I have a couple of different lighters in here, the regular Bic lighters, and I bought a couple of these candle lighters or whatever they call them with the long stem. And these are refillable, which I really like. And I've been using this. But the other day, I was in a big box store, and on the checkout lane, as you're waiting, of course, there's all that stuff there. They had this thing. And I looked at them and I thought, and it was only $3 there at the big box store. So I bought it. What it is a mini butane torch. And it's the perfect size for doing heat shrinks and things like that. I really actually like it a lot. But for $3, and it's refillable, the thing comes full of butane. So the thing has a huge reservoir for butane. So I thought, what a great little thing to have. And rather than dragging out my big one, this thing just sits here close at hand on my workbench, and I can grab it, heat shrink something real quick and put it back. And just boom. So I really like that. It works a little better than this one did. This is what I had been using a lot of times for the heat shrink. So anyway, I thought maybe I'd enlighten you about this. So what I learned was this thing, and here it is. I saved it so you could see it. This is the thing it came in, and it's an MK lighter. So I got curious. I went out on the internet, and sure enough, you can buy this off the internet. I think they're like $5 a piece or $4 a piece. I think you have to buy like 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, which I don't know why you would need that many, but hey, you know what? Find a couple of friends, buy one, have one, and each one pay for one, and you can keep the cost down. But it's not a bad little lighter to have in your shop. So, as far as having fire in the shop, I now have another source and I really like it. So I thought I'd show that to you real quick. Oh, I also bought this little butane lighter. Same thing. Whoop. And it has a butane there. I've been using this, but I actually like this one better. But this one also works. This one is Honest. So just put butane lighters in on Amazon and you'll see this and this and these. You'll see all sorts of different lighters. But I didn't know they even made this one. So anyway, so now I got 3 butane lighters. I got these 2 and my regular big one that I don't know when I'll get that out next time because I don't really need that one hardly at all. So anyway, I thought I'd share that lighter with you. One more quick story, then I have one on Rampage about my home backup system, Fogs. Annie, I have 2 dogs. One is a 1.5 years old. She's a puppy and just raring to go always. Well, mostly. She's kind of dead to the world right now. But the thing is that she's really hard on the other dog. Yeah, Annie's almost 13 years old, and unfortunately, her hips are really bad. So anyway, what happened is in my house I have a pergo laminated floors in most of the house, the kitchen, the living room, and all the walkways throughout the house. So, and the problem with the pergola is that I would not walk in that house with just socks on because it's like skating on ice then. And it's even worse with poor Annie because her hips so bad she couldn't even stay standing. She'd fall down and couldn't get up off that floor. And she stopped coming into the house other than the one room that she'd come in at the back of the house. That room is carpeted mostly. And she wouldn't go any further. She'd come in and get food, but she'd have a terrible time trying to do it. You could see she was just hurting. Anyway, the pergola floor was not her forte. So I bought an area rug for the living room so that she could be comfortable when she comes in there. And I actually like that rug in there on top of the pergola floor. But along the paths was still a problem. So what we did is we were at a big box store and I bought 10 small, I think they're like 6 by 3 or 6 by 40 inches maybe. Maybe they're even 30 inches wide. I'm not sure. But they're a smaller roll-up mat. Rubber on the bottom so that they don't slide. And they're very thin, very tight knit on them. So I put those down. I bought 10 of them, and I put 8 of them down, give me a couple of spares. And they're laying in all the paths down the hallway and in the kitchen and leading into the living room area. So now she can walk on rug instead of that slick floor. And it has been a total success. She's back to walking around the house now and laying in there. But when we go to bed at night, the dogs like to come in and lay in the bedroom on the floor. There's only one bed in there, and they fight over that sometimes, but they both come in there, and when I wake up in the morning, they're almost always there in the bedroom again. So it's nice to have her going throughout the house. So putting down those little throw rugs, and I did buy 10 to match so that they all match each other, and I can pull them up and set them down, and if I have to clean them, I can throw another one down and take that one and clean it, and it just makes it so much easier for the dog. And when the finally time comes and she's gone, if I want, I can take all of these rugs back up. And so, anyway, it worked out great, and it really, for a minimum of money, I think they were like $7 a piece when I bought 10 of them. So it was a very reasonable cost to give her access to the house to be able to walk around again. Poor thing. I felt so bad for her, and I was trying to figure out what I could do, because last thing I wanted to do is change out that floor. So anyway, happy ending, I think. So anyway, now what I really want to talk about is my backup system. As you know, I now have a generator backup system, and I'm talking about putting a battery backup with 10 to 15 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. So a fairly good sized one, and it'll be a split phase. So I'm looking at possibly doing the EG4, but I'm also looking at the other brands. I haven't made up my mind which one, but the idea of how I want to build it and what I'm doing is totally different than what anybody else wants, because everybody else always goes and they buy these batteries and they mount them up in a rack and set it against the wall, and then they mount the inverter on the wall and run all the wiring and everything. And that's great if you have the room to do it. My problem is in this house, there is an expansion. It used to be a 2-bedroom bungalow back in the 30s, I think. And so then this was added on in like 95. This addition, which has an additional bedroom, a bath, and another room, which is now I would call we call it the kids' bedroom. They go in there and lay down in there all the time. But that is where my panel for my house is located now. It was moved from where it was in the old house to this new location, and it's a nice big upgraded panel, 200 amp service, and it's a nice setup. The problem is it's right there in the open room. That is in my house. There's 3 entrances: the front door, which leads out to the front street, or off to the right to go to the driveway, and then the other 2 entrances are in this little room that is the add-on room. We'll call it the great room, or the kids' bedroom. But that room has 2 exits. One goes into the backyard with the doggy door in it, and the other one is a side door, which goes 7 feet on the other side of this door. While I walk across between the two, the shop and the house, to go from one to the other. So that's the other door, and they're both in this great room. And those 2 doors actually are probably used 99.9% of the time. Nobody really comes through the front door. And we actually have one of the dog little cushion beds in front of the doorway with the way that everything's set up, so they can sleep there. So we never use it. My point is that this room where the panel is where I would have to put all of this equipment. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but I have realized one thing. about this equipment, these inverters, they are loud. They are very loud. And that is open all the way to where my kitchen and living room, everything, and her office. So if that thing is running off the inverter, the house is, you're going to hear it probably almost anywhere in the house. If I mount it on the wall in that room, it would be very noisy in the house while that thing is running. So that has created a problem that I had to think about. How am I going to solve that problem? Well, quite simply, I've decided that I'm actually going to make my battery backup system, and I'm going to mount it and make it mobile, and I'm going to put it on a cart. Now, just the other day, Will Prowess put out a video with pretty close to what I was thinking about doing, and I thought, wow, that's pretty much what I want. And it'll be easy to make it. It'll be kind of expensive. Between the inverter and, let's say, 3 server batteries, 48-volt system, would probably run me around $6,000 for this whole setup by the time I get everything in there. Thereabouts for a split phase 240 unit. It's not unreasonable. It's a good price when you consider the alternatives, and it's very flexible to do even more with it as I go, and I can have it grow. So it's not a bad way to go, but it is a pretty good investment. Right now, all I got invested is I bought the generator, and I run that wiring. I got less than $1,000 wrapped up in my home generator backup system. But as you all know, and anybody out there would know, you can't run the battery system. You can't run the generator 24/7. It's impractical, and when it's not running, what do I do? So if the power goes out for any length of time, I still would want to use this generator. But most of the time, when we have the power go out, it's only out for like 12 hours to 24 hours. It has been off for 2 days before, but that's very unusual. So if I get a big enough battery backup system, there's a good chance I don't even have to start up the generator once I get this battery system. That alone, plus I don't have to go outside to set it up and hook it up and everything. But I still have the noise factor. So that's why what I've decided to do is I'm going to make a split phase system just like that cart that Will Prowess made. Only mine's going to be on 4-wheel cart. I knew that going in. When I saw his 2-wheel cart, I thought, no, because I'd already had zeroed in on using the Harbor Freight utility cart. There's 2 of them. One of them is a 1,000-pound rating with 10-inch pneumatic wheels, and the other one is a 1,200-pound rating with 13-inch pneumatic wheels. That's probably the one I'm going to put this system on, so that it will still be very easy to roll back and forth. And when you have the pull handle on, it's just like a little red wagon type of thing with the front wheels will steer it. So it's a pretty sturdy setup, and I think that it's more than enough and make it easy to still be able to pull that and roll that around so that if I want. And why would I want to do that? Well, because I can roll it into a place and keep it out of the way. If I need it, power goes out, I walk in there, I roll the cart over to where I could even build a cabinet to store it right by there. But I don't want to run it at that location probably. I can take it, plug my cord from the unit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sub panel. We'll go over all the electrical of it either. But theoretically what I want to do is be able to take a cord, plug it into the wall outlet right by the panel, flip a couple of breakers, turn the inverter on, and I'm now running off the inverter. But I don't really want to leave it in that room per se. So I have 2 options. I can roll it outside the back door. If I put a 25-foot cord on it, I can run it outside, and it can sit outside on the back deck right there, which is covered, while it's running. And that would be perfect. Then it's out there where it's not making all that noise in the house. Or I could take it and roll it over to the spare room that's in this new addition, which is whose office. And if she's not in her office, we can roll it in there, shut the door, and that way it'll be in a 10 by 12 room closed, and it should not have a overheating problem there. And that should give us a quiet while it's running, rather than having to listen to that in the whole house if I mounted it on the wall right there in that room. So I think that will kind of solve the problem, is be able to roll this around a little bit and still plug it in so that I can be able to use it without having to keep me awake at night. So that's the idea, and that's why I want to go to a actual cart instead. Like I said, if you check out Will Prowers, his unit is almost exactly what I had in mind. So let's look at the sub panel, how I want to hook it up so we can hook it up to the house. And I'll also show you, let me show you how I have the generator hooked up now, and how I'm going to be able to hook all of this up and be able to use it to run my house if the power goes out. One more quick thing. I also found, finally, there is a product out there that you can put on there, and it's a power alert. You wrap it around one of your main lines coming into the house, and you set it up. And if the power goes out, the alarm is not going off. But if the power comes on, the alarm starts running, starts sounding. So what that means is that I can hook it up to the main on the outside side of it, to the inlet side of the breaker, and shows no power when I turn it on. If there's power there and I turn it on, I'll get that alarm going off. But if I turn it on and there's no power, I turn the main breaker off, I don't know when the power comes back on. Well, this little alarm will help me do that. So I do have an eye on one of them. They're less than $50, but that is also going to be incorporated at my main panel, so that if the power goes off and I turn the main off, I can turn that little alarm on, and then if the power ever comes back on, the alarm will let me know that I had power back, and then I can go in and turn everything back to the way it should be when you're on grid. So those little alarms, I couldn't believe that they finally thought of how to do that, because I thought I was going to have to wire up my own. But it's nice I don't have to reinvent the wheel, apparently. So anyway, so I have my eye on one of those also in my system, so that I'll know when the power comes back on. It's just an alarm to tell you when the power comes on. So let's look at this thing here real quick and show you what my idea is, how I'm going to wire this up, so that if you have any thoughts about it or suggestions, they would definitely be appreciated. Okay, so here's the system here. This is right now what I have is, this is my panel in the house. This is the exterior wall, and I have an outlet mounted here, a 240 outlet. My generator is in my shed outside, and I run a cord when I'm going to run the generator. I just run a cord from the generator and I plug it in on the side of the house. Then this circuit goes in and hooks up to a circuit on my control panel, and there's an interlock so that when the main is on, I can't turn that breaker on. When the only way I can use that generator then to backfeed into my panel is I have to have the main off and that interlock moved over. Then I can turn that on, and then my generator will supply. That way you don't backfeed the grid. If you know anything about how to set up a generator on a whole house, that's basically what that's designed for. So anyway, this is what I have right now. So what I'm going to do is I want to add this cart and be able to plug it in. So instead of this wire going directly to that breaker, I'm going to reroute that to a sub panel. And so what we'll do is I'm just going to run the wires from that breaker to a sub panel, and then run this over. I'll put another inside plug-in, 240 plug-in, just like this one right here, so that I can still plug into that and be able to tap into the generator for my battery power. So I'm going to have an outlet there, this circuit, so there'll be two outlets on the circuit, and it'll run to a circuit in here. This circuit, then, this panel will be powered by that same interlock main. So this sub panel will not be active unless the interlock is engaged. That means that this panel can be used for backfeeding purposes only. But what that will accomplish is now I can take, if I have two switches in here, one goes to this outlet here, which also goes to this outlet for the generator to this circuit breaker, so that if I want, I can turn the main on here and then turn this breaker on, run the generator, and I'm powering the whole house. If I want to use the battery instead of turning this one on, I can turn this breaker on And this plug-in, so I have the two plug-ins here, one to each breaker. This breaker is also goes out to the generator, but this one is only right here, and I can take my battery cart and plug it in, that plug-in, which is the output of the inverter, and plug it into the outlet here, turn that breaker on, and now my battery is back feeding the system. And again, I have to have the main off to do any of this sub-panel stuff. But in the sub-panel, then basically I have two basic circuits. One circuit, and you have, on your battery, you have, ignore that, you have the battery hookup, and you have an in and an out on the inverter. The out gives you the 240 volts to feed the house. The in allows you to use the inverter to charge the batteries. So when the grid is running, I can take this cord and plug it in somewhere to my panel to be charging my batteries up with the inverter turned off, without using the inverter to run anything. And that way it'll help keep my batteries charged up. If I go into a mode where I have to run off the generator, off the batteries, I can plug the batteries in, turn that circuit on, and I'm running off my batteries. My batteries start to run down after 10 hours or 12 hours. I can take this cord, plug it in right here, leave that off, plug this into this cord here, plug the generator into here, and then I can energize the input side to charge the battery while I'm still using the batteries to run the house. So that way I can charge the battery while it's being used at the same time. So I have to put a sub panel basically in the house with two outlets, two 240 outlets. One goes to the generator, the other one will go to my battery, my home battery cart. So, and that's kind of the plan at this point, because eventually I do want to add solar to this too, so as to help slow down how many times I have to start the generator. If I can feed in 5,000 watts a day into solar, then maybe I only have to run the generator once a day instead of twice a day. Also, if I set this up right, I also want to put not only solar, but I want to put let me go back over here real quick. The other thing I would do, too low. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to eventually put another panel on here, a transfer panel. And on that panel, I will also have a plug-in here to energize this from the battery system. So I can then take this cord and plug it in here instead of here, and then I can run things off of my transfer panel instead of running it off the grid while I'm still using the grid. So this transfer panel will also be hooked up to certain circuits. For example, and I don't think that it would be the most practical way of doing it. Let me zoom that back out. But once I add that transfer panel, then I'm also going to be adding solar outside to be able to feed solar into this. That way I can run my battery, charge it up only from solar, and when it's fully charged, I can use the transfer switch to run part of my house off of my battery system, and then let the solar system run that part, and that'll help offset some of my costs of electric power from the grid. And as I add more solar, I'll use the grid less and less, and eventually I could even be off the grid most of the time. So I don't know if I want to go that far. I still have a long way to go to figure out about solar, because just like this cart, instead of mounting everything on the wall in the house like that and have it being noisy, I'm going to a mobile cart to run mine. Now remember, this is a 6,000 watt split phase inverter. It means that 6,000 watts is all I have to run the house. You're not going to be able to run that house full bore out on that kind of circuitry. You really truly need 12, probably at least 12,000 kilowatts of inverter power. So eventually I may add a second inverter in parallel with the first one and be able to plug that in too. So, but that's down the road. Right now I just want to be able to use it when the power goes out without having to have sitting in the dark. So this little card with 6,000 kilowatts of output should be enough to be able to run the house, because that's about what the generator puts out, and I have run my house off the generator. Worst case scenario, if I have to run the air conditioner, I can run the air conditioner then through the transfer switch, plug the generator into the transfer switch, run the generator when the power is off, and still run my batteries off of the other power to be able to run the air conditioner. Although I may be able to run that air anyway. I have to do some power tests to see what I'm really drawing. But I think I do have the capability of running the air conditioning while still running minimum stuff in the house. Now, I don't want to run the well and the air conditioner at the same time, or all my refrigerators kicking in and all that. So if I'm going to run the air conditioner, I might turn the power off to my well pump and to my different freezers and refrigerators potentially, so that I know I'm not going to overload the system. And so I'll have to play musical breakers when I'm running the whole house. That's inevitable until I put a 12,000 kilowatt inverter. When I go to 12,000 kilowatts, then I'll be able to, with 12,000 kilowatts, I'll be able to actually probably run the whole house without any kind of feeling of disruption of no power. So, but the more power I'm using that for, the more array of solar I'm going to need before it's over. So anyway, I have rambled on a lot about what I'm going. My first step is that now I have the generator all set up and everything is working fine. It's time to expand that system so that I can now have a home battery cart, a mobile system that I can roll around, so I can set it outside and plug it in the house, or I can set it in that spare room and plug it in, so that the rest of the house doesn't have to listen to that roaring jet going off all the time, constantly. Because last thing I want to do is have that jet noise in the house itself when we're off grid. So I think this will solve that problem. And the only thing I'm going to have on my wall will be that main panel. And then on the one side, I'll have the sub panel for backfeeding. And then I'll put a transfer panel on the other side for when I want to go off grid partially while I'm still on grid on some of it. And once I start doing solar, and I have some great ideas on solar. You think this out of the box thinking about making this battery cart is something? Wait till you see my ideas about solar and how that's going to work for me. So anyway, I think that's about it. I got to quit because we're already at almost a half hour. But I just wanted to bring you up, let you think about the things I've been thinking about. But this is where I'm planning on going, is doing it in stages. I had the first phase done with the generator and everything is working. So now I'm going to add the battery phase to that this year, I hope. By the end of this year, I hope to have that battery and all that electrical sub panel in place and all that. And then I'll show it to you when I get it all done. And then we're going to start on adding solar, so that I can stop using that generator except in really harsh conditions. So anyway, that's the plan, and I think that when it's all done, I should at least have enough power so when the electricity goes off, I can comfortably keep power going all the time without having to listen to my generator at the same time. So any questions, any thoughts, comments? Your comments would really be appreciated to see how I might want to refine this system. Or maybe I can't do something that you think I can. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts about this electric cart, because instead of using one big 240 split phase inverter, if I built two smaller carts, like what Will Pross has done many times, and make a 120 volt system with maybe 10K and make two of those, maybe I can set those two up into a split phase when I want to use it to do the whole house. Kind of like the way Delta, the EcoFlow does, where you take 2 separate units and make it the 240 backfeed system. So just a thought. I think I'm going to go with a single cart though, and we'll go from there. But that is open. Once I start building the cart, I'll know what I'm going to do. But I could do it in 2 carts, or I could do it in just 1. I think I'm going to go with the single cart idea though. Even though Will Prowse thinks that's a bad idea, I think it's actually a very good one. So anyway, I think that fits my needs better than having that on a 2-wheel cart like he does. So I want to thank you for coming by. Leave your comments. If you learned something here or you like this video, hit that like button. Most importantly though, please, if you would, come back again, because I'm nowhere near done. Thanks. We'll see you guys again very soon.